Hello everyone, it's been a monster here, and I just wanted to come on here and give a few thoughts what I had about God of War Ragnarok. Um, so I've been watching it on sort of YouTube because I don't own a PlayStation, so I watched the story sort of happen by and things like that, and I've got a few issues with it. So the first issue was sort of, there's spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then you probably should not watch this video until you've either played it or watched it yourself. So what I found was, what I didn't like was Atreus's character in the sort of, I think it was the mid-game, how he behaved. It seemed like right now they've kind of, in God of War 2018, they've got an equilibrium, and it sort of works. But then it sort of gets broken because he's trying to sort of find out who he is, I guess. But then that kind of goes against, like, everything they sort of went through in the beginning game. So, like, they were getting to trust each other and everything, and then it kind of, like, busts all that stuff. I just feel like it's artificially put in there, in a way, instead of... Because I would have thought, like, by now, they seem thick as thieves, so... It seems strangely that Atreus doesn't tell his father and stuff like that. It feels like... It just seems strange. Yeah, I might not like that, but I think Kratos himself would want to know more about his wife. And then my other sort of grievances with who they cast as Freya, not Freya, Faye, Kratos' wife. It's just like, I didn't envision Faye looking like that and sort of acting like that. And then when the visions sort of happened, I feel like they were meant to give you some insight into their relationship because it showed Faye and all that stuff, and it really didn't. And it didn't give you. You just kept with old grumpy Kratos somehow getting into a new relationship with this lady, and it feels like it escalated very quickly, and then they had a baby, and it wasn't really sort of, I don't know, there was no wooing or or anything like that. It just sort of happened, and I think it's they should have done a little bit more writing, a little more character development with Faye, because we've went on this massive adventure to put her ashes away, and then and then not to have any more of a character in Ragnarok. Yeah, we had she fought Thor. That was like, that's cool, but it doesn't give us insight into what Kratos and her were like as a couple and stuff like that. And yeah, people will say, it's Kratos. He's not like he's not going to be like all acting, nice, but the fact that he mentions wooing in the sort of end part, like, oh, did I teach Atreus to woo? And it's just like, well, we never saw any of that with you with Freya, so he was always just quiet. And I know it was a dream, so it might have been his consciousness as it was now, but I think they really missed the mark. They should have really pursued character development for Faye, as well as Kratos, like how he would act, sort of outside of, like he ran away from his past and then sort of became a different person. Well, not a different person, but like he wanted to be something different, and what I thought it would be a bit more gentle and a bit more thing. And then when she died, the grief and his previous character came back, and he didn't know how to be a father to his son and stuff like that, because Faye kind of did that most of the time. But just to hear that he sort of didn't really interact with Atreus, sort of outside that, just like, it's a bit crap, even though his father was a bit of a douche, I think. Well, Zeus anyway. So yeah, that was that part. I didn't like that there wasn't much sort of story development or character development for Faye. And then I also didn't like Tyr. Yeah, he was made out to be a peaceful person in this game, so 2018. But it turns out he was just Odin in disguise for a little bit. And how he ended up sort of betraying everyone, like when they were in the like Sindri's house, I guess, in the realm between realms. I felt it was force, and it came out of nowhere for like Odin, because Odin was disguised himself as the god Tyr, well, the god of war in this land, and for him to just get him just he's a schemer, he's all that, he's a strategist and all that stuff, for him to just go, you know what, this dwarf's getting on my nerves, so I'm just gonna kill Brock out of nowhere. I think that didn't work. It was just like, oh, okay. So it just lost his rag and did that. But, so it didn't really work. And I guess he was improvising on the spot, Odin was. But I thought, with him being like old and stuff like that and being a very clever and scheming god, he would have devised a better plan. But I think the sort of writers couldn't really think of how to use this, so they ended up just doing that. And then the fact that they killed Brock, and then the sort of afterwards of it, there wasn't emotion there from Atreus or anything, or from everyone else. It was sort of like, oh, Brock's dead, oh, that's shit. And it's like, okay, we went, you got the spear with Brock and all that stuff, but it wasn't as captivating as Sindri. If Sindri died instead of Brock, it would have affected Atreus so much that it would mirror his father going for vengeance and all that stuff, because you do see Atreus and Sindri get a lot of screen time together. Sindri confesses like, oh, I brought Brock back from the dead because he died and he's got a piece of his soul missing. And then they kind of didn't really do anything with that. Like, oh, thanks for telling us, Sindri. That came out of nowhere. But if it was Sindri who got killed by Tyr, when Sindri was like, I'm not sure I'm trusted, and sort of trying to understand the plan Tyr has going, and then Tyr sort of lost his rag in that way. But I think that should have been rewritten anyway. But without that rewritten, I think Sindri would have made the better character to be killed, because it would be like, holy crap. Sindri, who I think we met Brock first in the original game, and then, but Sindri he's the more nicer kind of version of Brock. Yeah, Brock's the comic relief and stuff, but Sindri is the really emotion connector, I think. Like, he's the one who shows the most emotion out of everyone, I think. Apart from anger, of course. And has a bit more personality than just talking like, like really horrible. Not horrible, but like, oh, that was a bit. He says scrote a lot, and that's funny. And it's right in its own right. But I think if Sindri died, and then Brock sort of teleports away with him. They walk between realms with him, and takes him to Alfheim, and basically does what Sindri does. Because now he understands the pain that Sindri went through. And he resurrects Sindri again, and then they come back, both of them. Or you can see him, or you go like, well, we need Brock, we need a dwarven engineer, we need someone to talk to the dwarves and stuff for us. And then you head to Alfheim because someone tells you, or I don't know. And then you see Brock resurrecting Sindri in the same way, and you see him have that moment together. And then they teleport away again, and you're like, oh, where did they go? And then the end, you could say someone uses one of those portal doors, and informs you that Sindri and Brock have returned, and then you're like, Sindri? All that can happen after the entire fight, so it doesn't sort of negate Atreus' vengeance arc or anything. So, Brock goes a bit mad like Sindri did, but he helps and then immediately gets out the way like Sindri did, I think, and stuff like that, and then immediately heads to Alfheim to get Sindri's soul sort of things back. And then you sort of, when you're all done and you go back to the house, you see Sindri there, and it's like a nice touching moment with Brock and Sindri, and then Atreus and stuff like that. I think it would have worked better, because you really would have got vengeance from, even though it's like, no, we want justice, not vengeance, but you could see Atreus sort of holding vengeance instead, and stuff like that. And then when it comes to sort of, I feel like Odin shouldn't have been killed, basically. He should have, the little ball thing, and being imprisoned and being a bauble that Atreus carries around with him. And stuff like that, because that seems a fate worse than death, than just being your soul being put into a crap little circle ball that nothing happens. You're just there, and you kind of, that's probably the worst fate for Odin than death. That he just goes a bit crazy within a ball instead of just being decimated by Sindri by just slapping the hammer and releasing his soul into the next life or whatever. I'm pretty sure basically that's what happens anyway. But yeah, I did like the fact that it meant Brock doesn't get an afterlife because he did have all 3 pieces of his soul. I think that's a kind of a shit thing for a character, but I suppose that's where the hard hitting is in the actual storyline. That kind of affects you that way, but emotionally, I think it would have been better if Sindri did die instead of Brock. And then when it came to Freya, Freya with the R in the end, and then Freya. So Freya's brother basically just needlessly sacrificed himself at the end, and that doesn't have a real, sort of like an emotional connection kind of thing. It's more like, well, okay, why did you do that? So it's a bit everywhere, and sort of the deaths don't hit properly, and especially like that dude with the sword. He's just like, oh, I'm gonna sacrifice myself and stuff, and you're just like, what's the point in doing that when we don't really have an emotional connection or anything with him? It's just like, oh, he's dead, but then he's not dead because you find him, so it's like, okay. So it's I felt like the story was a bit everywhere like this time, but there was like a story route going through, and the dialogue was good, the actors were good, and and the animations, all that stuff. Like, it's definitely a 9 out of 10, but what let it down was the story just off a mark. It wasn't quite there for me, and I definitely think they did a really good job. I'm not gonna lie. I think they did a great job for the circumstances and stuff. I just think they needed a little bit more time to just write out the story and be like, okay, because there's this thing in like writing and stuff. You have the, this happens because of this happens because of this, but like if you start introducing like, and then this happened, and then this happened, it's like, oh, but why did it happen? Like another thing with I think it's Sigyn, just how she changes so quickly on a dime with Atreus at the end, instead of being like, because of you, my husband's dead and stuff like that. And she wasn't vengeful in any way. But I guess she's not a sort of a warrior god or something, but I reckon she still could have kicked some ass and stuff. And that could have been a little boss fight for Atreus on his own with, all that stuff. But it just seemed like she just turned on a dime really quickly. Whereas, it should have been a boss fight between Thor's daughter and Atreus and the mother. And then it's like, at the end, it's sort of like, okay, I've got my rage out now. I don't wish to die. I guess I've got to be here for my daughter and stuff. And then she says, go and get Odin. end his reign and stuff. A little bit more of emotional outburst, I guess, instead of going, yeah, Odin's been crazy all the time. Go and get him. Which seems a bit of a, a bit like, oh, okay. Like she's I don't know if I don't think that's her father, but I think it's father-in-law, so she should should do something. But yeah, overall I thought it was a really good game, and I think the story was just lacking a little bit. That's all I could take away from it. Like I wasn't quite satisfied with the ending and stuff like that. And I know the end part of sort of this game was go and fight the Valkyries, and then the end parts for like Ragnarok was going to find a Valkyrie and do that. Yeah, so it does. I don't worry about the future of the franchise too much. Like Atreus is definitely going to some other lands and stuff. He's either going to Egypt or because one of the dudes said, I think it was the game director. He said, "Oh, you could tell by Tyr's animations when you find him again in the tunnels and stuff in the Dwarven realm." And it's like, oh yeah, you could tell by the animations. So he's kind of doing these like relaxed kind of like dances and stuff. So it makes me think it's going to be the sort of he's going to head to like I don't know what culture it is or what gods they are, but it's sort of the closest thing I can think of is Moana. The god in that. What's his name? Is it? I can't recall, but I think you might be going to that sort of region. Because we thought it was Egypt, but I don't think it is going to be Egypt, so I don't know. But yeah. So that's all I've got to say about Ragnarok. It wasn't quite there for me. Like definitely a 9 out of 10, I would say. Like they did the best they could, and I think they really just needed to think about the story a little bit more. But I think the definitely Game of the Year material, the graphics, the gameplay and all that stuff was just really there. It looked really fun watching it, and playing God of War 1, I was like, yes, this is really fun. I imagine Ragnarok would be great too, so I'm looking forward to getting that on PC when it comes out in 20 years. No, it'll probably be like a few years down the line, because I know they're releasing games and stuff like that on the PC now, PlayStation is. But yeah, I think Ragnarok was a good game, but it wasn't quite there for me, I think, with the story-wise. And they were just... I was like, hey, what? Okay. Like I said, so just an overview, it was basically not enough detail with Freya. I think Sindri should have died. I think some characters didn't have enough... There wasn't enough space for them to sort of, get their sort of time, like Sigyn and stuff like that, and Thrud. I do think there was an optional quest you could have done with Thrud and stuff like that, but I didn't see that. So that's what I'm going off. But I do think it just needed a little bit more writing again. Because I did hear that it seemed like they did all the story from A to B, then went through it and then sort of changed the expectations and all that stuff. And I think some things should have gone through. It's 3 times, always trying to go through your stories as often as you can, going, oh, this could be better, this could be better, this could be better, and stuff like that. But yeah, what we got in the end was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. I probably will enjoy playing it. So yeah, I will... That's my opinion on Ragnarok. A 9 out of 10, I'd say. Definitely a 9 out of 10, Game of the Year. So yes. So it's still a great game. I have no hate towards it or anything. I think it just could have... the story could have used some just little minor tweaks. And I think it would have been perfect. So 10 out of 10. But my score is a 9 out of 10. Yeah. So, yes, that'll be my little 2 cents, I guess, thrown at Ragnarok. Being like, you're a great game, but I think you should have done this different. So, yeah. I will... So, yeah, that's my little view. I must say, I do like God of War 2018. So, the I guess the first one of this series. I do like that more. I think it was a better story, more a father-son closeness relationship instead of this story where it kind of divided them and all that stuff. And I wasn't a fan of it, but I know that was the sort of the theme, like, oh, you know, two people eventually growing the same, going, you know, growing up and going a different ways and stuff. So I get that, but I think it, instead of Atreus being like an out there, like, really silly teenager kind of phase kind of thing, which just makes us roll our eyes, I think it should have been done in a different way. Like, there should have been more reasons to why Atreus acted the way he did. But yeah, overall, 9 out of 10 for me, based on what I've seen and stuff like that. I can't wait to play it when it comes out on PC. So yeah, if you like this video and if you agree with me, leave a like. If you have your own opinions, please, I love seeing all perspectives on sort of criticism and things like that. Why do you think I'm wrong in my opinions and stuff like that? I like knowing it, as long as it's respectful and, you know, it's not just like, you're an idiot. You have no idea about writing. But yeah, so yeah, that's the video, and I hope you like and subscribe. So I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.